Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Hello. Ha. Happy day in July. Robert and I just got back from a reset mountain trip in the high country. Ha. The wildflowers are incredible. Well, welcome to Unity of Fort Collins. We have a great service planned for you today, but I want to just say that to my delight and surprise, some old friends, Unity friends, reappeared through our doors this morning. So would you wave to us? Thank you. Yay. Would you like a visitor packet? Would you like a? We'll put one in your hand because things are a little different at Unity of Fort Collins these days. So anybody else who's new to us today, if you'd raise your hand, if you'd like to, we'll put a visitor packet in your hand. Changes at Unity of Fort Collins is that our format's a little different. We've got our two dear spiritual leaders, Jim Yaw and Sharon Bush, and they speak twice or three times a month. And the congregation fills in with speakers who share their spiritual journeys. And sometimes we have outside speakers. We consider ourselves an interfaith congregation, so once a quarter we have speakers from other of the world's great religions come and speak to us. So there's a lot of thriving energy here in this community today. Today, we are so fortunate to have members of our own community speaking about their journey. And they've been with us for quite a while at this point and have shared the beauty of their children with the congregation on a weekly basis. So there's love for this team and for their kids that abound here in our midst. So they're going to enter into what I call brave space today, where they're sharing vulnerability and authenticity and spirituality and love with us. So I'm so grateful. Thank you for sharing today. Our reader, who is our reader? Holly. Holly's our reader today. And our musician today is Elise Wonder. So wonderful. I've got a bunch of announcements. Each week, a prayer chaplain. So our prayer chaplain program is growing. And it's really the opportunity to share spiritual space with folks, to pray with people. And we've got a host of folks who serve as prayer chaplains who talk to their folks once a month, but hold them in prayer every day. So it's part of a network of loving prayer. And so after the service, I think Robert is the prayer chaplain today. And if anybody would like to be held in prayer, to pray, to share with him after the service in the library, he'll be there. The July Family Fun Night is at our house this week, the 21st from 6 to 8. We have a little acreage with horses and sheep, and we're going to have a campfire with hot dogs and not dogs and s'mores and pony rides and sheep that will nibble from your hands. So we welcome all the kids and families and all the big kids who just like to come have a campfire. So all are welcome. Good, I'm glad. Bring it on. We'll love to have you. Salad of the Soul potluck. bring a chair. We have chairs for 12, so if we get bigger than 12, we'll need your help. The Salad of the Soul potluck fundraiser will take place on Sunday, July 30th, right after the service. And this is a long-standing tradition for Unity of Fort Collins. And we raise money to provide a fresh, local CSA vegetable share for a low-income family in 2023. The goal of the Feeding the Families program is to increase access to fresh, locally grown vegetables, knowledge of food topics, and community engagement. So it's a salad potluck, and we raise money to bring fresh produce to a local family. Kids Camp at Unity starting the week of July 31st through August 4th. It's co-hosted between Unity and Polestar Gardens, and it's a focus on outdoors, garden space, nature. So if you have kids, grandkids, other kids, feel free to pass that information on. Our Unity annual picnic will be on Sunday, August 27th after the service, so save the date. We will be having a yard sale this fall, so we haven't set a date for it yet, but start collecting your stuff. September 16th. Thanks, Leanne. And the community lunch bunch, the group that goes to lunch, all is welcome. Anybody can come to lunch. We have a gathering, and today it's at the Island Grill after the service. Okay, Arlene, you may. That would be so good. Courtney, come up.
Also, I'll mention for that Salad for the Soul, there is a clipboard going around for sign up to bring salads, bread, and desserts, I think, and also for setup and cleanup. So fill that out if you feel inclined. I am here to remind you that your 20% off coupon to the bookstore, which is good over and over again. You can use it as much as you want, and it's good not just on books, but hoodies, hats, the cups, as well as all the books there. But anyway, it expires at the end of July, so use that up real quick. And then in your bulletin, I hope you found a survey. We realized that, well, this is one of the reasons why we're doing the 20% off, is to kind of clear some of the old titles out so that we can make space and get some dollars in to buy some fresh titles. And so we want to know what you guys are into. We want to know what teachers, what authors, what kinds of books you like to read, and then we will, keep that in mind as we are making our future orders on books. So fill that out. You can drop it in the offering basket this week, next week. You can email it. We put Kamina and I, we're the co-chairs of the welcome team. We put our emails on there, so you can email your information as well if you'd rather. So that's help us out. Thanks.
All right. Unity of Fort Collins had a booth at the Pride in the Park Festival yesterday. Just wanting to be clear that our community supports all folks and welcomes folks who need a safe spiritual community. All right, let's join together in our centering prayer. Our unity centers us in light and peace, allowing us to recognize our God within and to radiate that love to the world. Thank you.
Please join. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere are blue. And the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops high above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. By then, oh, I can't I? Somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, I can't And now a reading from Holly.
Hello. Good morning. A matter of perspective. I wanted to talk for a few minutes about the stories that we tell to ourselves, where we fit, who we are, how other people view us, and especially how we view ourselves. Now, I'm supposed to cover this in 5 minutes, so I'll be brief. And I wrote myself a couple notes to keep me on track. How we identify ourselves filters how we take in new information and how we react. We're told so many stories as we're growing up that sometimes we don't realize what we've taken in as absolute truth and assumption. For example, growing up in Fort Collins, when I hadn't been exposed to a lot of different cultures yet, I was once asked, who wears skirts? Right? And my first answer was girls, because that had been my experience. And then as I had a stepfather come from Egypt and I was exposed to Hawaii and different places, I learned that skirts are worn by lots of different people for different reasons. My background, Northern European mutt, includes Scottish, right? Men wear kilts. Women can too. But whether you're wearing a sarong or a skirt or a long linen to protect you from the sun in the desert, there was a lot more to the question than I knew how to answer at the time. I also then was asked, what makes someone strong? And my first answer was, you can lift a lot, you can endure, you can do the stiff upper lip. And then I learned that strength also includes being willing to be vulnerable and present with something that's hard, to question yourself, and to be willing to grow when it's uniquely uncomfortable. As a parent, I think about misbehavior. And I loved a story that I think a lot of us have probably seen on social media about how to respond to a child that is acting out. And this one said that instead of treating a child like they're bad and you need to punish them into certain behavior or cajole them with treats, they sat down and everybody put their feet together. And they would help remind the child of where they belonged and how loved they were and how important they were to their community, that misbehavior came from pain and misunderstanding, and you could heal that in a way that punishment won't do. And I try to remember that when I get really frustrated with someone, especially the closer they are to my heart or the more triggered I get. So the stories we tell change how we interact, how we react, or take a breath and then choose to do better than something that came before. So my next point, I want to encourage you to be strong enough to question your assumptions. We have blind spots in the things that we assume, and there's tension, and we get pulled in different directions that can be uncomfortable. Sometimes we avoid because we can't handle that right now. But eat, sleep, take a breath, and then be willing to sit with it and see if there's something more to it than we saw before, a new perspective that can help us change. Is this just something in my way, or is it a challenge that lets me rise to the occasion? Is this an opportunity for me to show up for someone that matters to me in a way that helps me live out the principles that I hold? How we define truth can be true for us, or what I learned in grad school to call a capital T truth, absolute for everybody. The more I look at it, the fewer of those I find. And that can really make you feel less secure until you find a guiding principle that's stronger. So for me, one of the things that comes to me is, why are we here? We all ask that. We make up lots of stories that help us explain why we're here in the universe, why we're here in the state, why we're here at this place today. And for me, one of the answers was, I'm here to learn, to become my better self. And that principle lets me be more comfortable with the discomfort that comes with questioning things I thought were absolutely true, but I've had more and more travel, more experience with others that lets me know there are more and sometimes better ways to do things, better names, better language I can use. And it lets me know that I can let go of what no longer serves me, which is freeing and terrifying if that was my security for a while. So it brings me to my last piece. I've learned that both and is a place of strength, that I can both know who I am and honor what's different for you, how you came to a different conclusion, the different life experience you've had that can lead to more insight on a subject, or ways of being stronger together, because we didn't all assume that we were using metric and then somebody else used standard and the space station isn't going together, for example. Be secure enough to make that safe space for others. And you can see the t-shirt I'm wearing today, We the People, means everyone. So we the people, I want that to include everyone who lives here, every perspective, in a way that we can be stronger together and be more inclusive, because you're doing something different than me doesn't threaten my well-being necessarily. So setting boundaries you can live with, if you feel that tension, introspection helps you adjust as you learn. And that learning principle lets me question what's working, what isn't, what can I let go of, and what new things can I adopt. Think about the stories you tell yourself. Question what works for you, and be open to new and wonderful things that we didn't know existed. Thank you.
My mama told me when I was young, we're all born superstars. She rolled my hair and put my lipstick on in the glass of her boudoir. There's nothing wrong with loving who you are, 'cause he made you perfect, baby. So hold your head up, girl, and you'll go far. Listen to when I say I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret. Just love yourself and you're set. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Don't be a... Give yourself prudence and love your friends. Subway kid, rejoice your truth. In the religion of the insecure, don't live out low. A different lover is not a sin. Believe capital H-I-M. I love my life, I love this record, and me, I'm overly fully fire. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. I don't have to regret. Just love yourself and you're set. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Whether you're broke or evergreen, you're black, white, beige, chola descent, you're Lebanese, you're Orient. Whether life's disabilities lift you outcast, bolito tease, rejoice and love yourself today, 'cause baby, you were born this way. No matter gay, straight or bi, lesbian, transgender life, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born to survive. I'm on the made, the Orient made. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born to be brave. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret. Just love yourself and you're set. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way. Baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. I said, ooh, there ain't no other way. Baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. That's a Lady Gaga song.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. It's just, I've not heard Lady Gaga in a church before, and I think it's just the best way to start this off.
Thank you.
Hi, we're Kelly and I'm LJ. You all see our kids float up to the front every Sunday that we're here when we sing the kids in. I think a lot of you probably, but probably maybe not all of you know that our son Gabriel's transgender. The words we use for this are, he's a transgender boy. And what that means is that he was born with female anatomy, but over the course of time and the course of his life, he's demonstrated and we have learned from him and through him that his heart, mind, and soul are 100% male. Kelly and I lean left in life, and Kelly probably leans a little further left than I do, and that's fine. But I've often joked in my own mind to myself, I don't think I've ever said it out loud before, though, that we're so liberal that we made one of our kids transgender, right? And it sounds kind of funny, and I think that there's probably some people in the world that think that that's actually how it happens, but in reality, nothing could be further from the truth than that, right? Nobody would choose for their kid to be subjected to the bullying and non-acceptance that Gabriel will very likely, at some point in his life, be subjected to. Nobody would choose for their kid to endure the confusion and frustration of gender dysphoria. That list goes on. So today I'd like to share a little bit about my experience, and some of it is going to overlap with things that Kelly's going to share with you as well. At this stage today of my life and experience, I know a lot of what it means to be transgender, what the psychological effects are to live with gender dysphoria, and what the treatment options there are from a medical standpoint. And I have a pretty good insight as to what much of Gabriel's life will be going forward resultantly. But this was not yet the case as we were being led to discover that Gabriel was not a little girl. The earliest memory I have of Gabriel expressing the desire to be a boy was when we were watching the movie Pete's Dragon. In the first half of the movie, the forest ranger's daughter was wandering around and discovered Pete up in a tree. So she started climbing up at the tree, but found herself in a perilous situation, nearly falling out of the tree, when Pete lowered himself down to rescue her. Gabriel, then Gabrielle, blurted out, "I want to be a boy so I can climb trees." I thought, well, that's a cute thing for a 2 or 3-year-old to say. So I responded, anyone can climb trees. I'm happy to teach you, but nobody has to be a boy to climb trees. And damn Disney for embodying the gender stereotypes anyways. Other scenarios of Gabriel embodying or expressing the desire to be a boy happen quite often. When he and his twin sister Audrey would play their unbounded imaginary play, he'd always be the king, Audrey would always be the queen. Gabriel was already the prince, Audrey was the princess. As a parent, when your child is first born, you're there in the hospital, you count the toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that foot, 5 on that toe. Okay, good, right? They got 2 ears, 2 eyes. That's good. Good heartbeat. The lungs are strong. The eyes are good. They respond to our voices, so they must not be deaf. We look for signs of normalcy and we rejoice that there's nothing wrong with our kids. This is good. We as human beings, right, we strive for things to be normal. You have lots of fears that your kids might have trouble learning in school. Maybe they'll have dyslexia. Maybe they'll struggle with math or reading. It's like there's this little list in our minds. It's not little, actually, it's pretty long. There's this long list of things that might be wrong with your kid. As you gradually check those things off your list, your anxiety lessens. Okay, I think we can make this. We're going to be okay. Gabriel and Audrey both started reading at a young age. We can check that off. There don't seem to be any learning disabilities. They were social with other kids. We can check those off. Looking for signs of gender conformity is not anywhere on the list of things that we check for, right? It was never even something that entered my mind. So given this natural anxiety that there might be something wrong or not normal with my child, it created anxiety for me to think of the possibility that Gabriel might be trans. At the time when he was expressing that he wanted to be a little boy, I honestly didn't even know what that meant. It was just the second to the last letter in that LGBTQ string of letters that meant a portion of our society hates you and doesn't want you to exist. I had no idea that being trans was something that manifested at a very young age. I'd never read any articles about what it was like to be trans. I had no reason to. I didn't know, I did, but I didn't know it yet, anyone who was trans. There were people around us that we later realized, oh, I had no idea. I had respect for everyone on the LGBTQ acronym because I respect all of humanity, but I didn't know what it really means and what it entails. At some point when we were still living in Denver, the children's minister at the church we were going to, who's this wacky, super liberal lady, she's lovely, but she is a wacky, super liberal, and that's fine. She told us that she thought that Gabriel was trans, and my immediate reaction was that it just wasn't possible for a preschool-age kid to be trans or to identify as trans. In my mind, you can't be trans until you're an adult, right? I'm saying this because I want to share how little I knew at the time, right? I graduated from high school in 1988. In the 80s and 90s, most of our understanding is like when someone is trans, that means they go to a doctor and they get a sex change. And now we don't use those words anymore. It's gender conforming surgery. It's a big difference in those words. But that was my understanding, right? I didn't know what it meant. And I'm going to go back to this woman at our church. I thought, who does she think she is to be telling us that our kids and this kid of mine, who's barely even preschool, could possibly be trans? I was actually angry about it. In my mind, and I said it out loud to Kelly too, there's no point in acknowledging Gabriel's continued desire to be a boy. He can't, he can want to be a superhero all he wants, and that's natural creative play. We should encourage that because being a superhero does good things in the world, right? We can play along with that. We can play along because it's a fun, creative idea. Kids have all sorts of crazy ideas that can't come to fruition. When I was 11, my mom married my stepdad, who was 6'8". I had this crazy idea that I would somehow, by virtue of being around my stepdad, grow to his height as well. You can see I didn't, right? There's my crazy idea that not come into fruition, right? So it's not too far a stretch for a preschooler to somehow think that magically he can turn into a boy. And that's what I thought at the time. I would say, he can want to be a boy all he wants, but he's never going to be a real boy. He can dress like a boy, act like a boy, and we can go along with his story and fantasy, but if we continue to acknowledge that this story, it'll only make it harder for him, her at the time, to get back to the reality that Gabrielle, that's what we called them then, is a girl. I've always been a fairly spiritual person. I believe, and I always have, that there are realities and realms far beyond what our five senses can detect or be aware of. But I'm also a logical person who believes that most of what our minds make of our five senses are also true. I have a sharp mind. I used to manage very large-scale software projects. I can fix most anything mechanical and some electronics too. And so I've got this mixed sense of what my mind's perceptions of the world are, how we fit into it, and what's real and what might not be real. I had never contemplated transgender realities, though. Eventually, in March of 2021, when the twins were in first grade, which is virtual school, of course. We're liberals who believed in COVID, for God's sake. We made the decision to acknowledge that Gabriel is transgender. It was a very painful experience. We still did not understand what it means to be transgender, but it was something we could no longer ignore or not acknowledge. Kelly and I both cried that night. I remember Kelly said, "I'll always look at him as my little girl." And I replied, "Maybe you won't. Maybe in 6 months it'll feel natural." And I was right. But it wasn't 6 months. It was weeks, or probably even less. When we acknowledged and accepted that Gabriel was really a boy and that he is transgender, it's like pulling the stopper out of a bathtub full of pain and letting that go down the drain. I think that there are a lot of things about life that require acceptance. My two eldest kids from my first marriage were at times very unkind to me, to Kelly and other members of my family, as they navigated the nasty reality of a divorced family situation when they were growing up. There was probably 5 years when my eldest daughter didn't speak with me for more than 4 or 5 times per year. Kennedy switched colleges after 1 trimester, and I was adamant that it was a bad choice and would limit her educational opportunities. Many of you here have raised kids through college and know that the list of choices kids can and will make can be terrifying. We love them through all the scary decision points and times when they reveal things about themselves that scare us, right? And it's not that Gabriel made a choice to be transgender, right? As Lady Gaga says, he was born that way, right? But it's scary. It's scary to have a transgender kid in this world. I meditate regularly, and I often strive for a different perspective, an empathetic position to see life from other people's eyes. One of my second cousins has a kid that transitioned, right, from female to male, and he told me once he fully accepted it, right, really fully accepted in your heart, that similar to my metaphor of a bathtub, the pain goes away. the fear can go away. People in my life, professionals, relatives, and everyone told me at the height of my divorce and recovery that my kids would eventually turn around and that the relationship would improve. And I completely failed to develop empathy for their perspectives. I failed to see that they were in just as much pain, and perhaps even more, as I was. I held on to that pain for a long time, years. I put myself in that victim role, that this is happening to me. It hurt my heart. I meditated on that for years, but what eventually came to me was that I had to be okay. I had to be okay whether my kids and I enjoyed a normal relationship or not. How could God have wanted this for me? What was I supposed to be learning from it? Over the course of many years, I learned to accept that I was okay and that my children were going through their own life struggles that I helped put them into. And while nothing in my life felt normal, all was still well in the universe. I just couldn't see it at the time. Today, I enjoy a really good relationship with both of them, and for this to happen, I had to accept that they had their own traumatic experience through all of this too. If I held on to my side of the story only, the relationships never would have healed. I feared Gabriel being trans with all my heart. I thought, what if he transitions and later regrets it? How can we allow the possibility of his body being altered so that he looks like a boy as he progresses through puberty? Which means if he changed his mind and decided that he was a female, would not be able to bear children. That's a big fear, right? How could we allow a young kid to do this? But again, I had to form acceptance at my soul level for a reality that was foreign to me. I asked God, in whatever form that is, whatever that word God means to you and to me, to show me a different perspective. Fortunately, this time it did not take years. Something in my library of traumatic experiences and pain, suffering, and joy as well made it so acceptance came quite quickly, and I'm forever grateful for that. That fateful day when we sat around our kitchen table with both the twins and acknowledged what is, I remember Gabriel beaming that we had acknowledged that from that day forward, he would be called Gabriel and as a boy. And he looked at me and he said, now I'll be your son. And that exact moment, I wasn't ready for that. I wish I was, right? None of us are perfect. I wasn't prepared for that statement or to acknowledge it, but of course I said, of course you are. And I hugged him, and I didn't have any outward presentation of the fear and the pain that was inside. Inside, I still had that fear and the pain, but again, my acceptance came pretty quickly. And while I acknowledged this reality of him being transgender is going to be in pain and suffering, it's going to be a source of pain and suffering for him at many stages and times in his life, it's as real for me that he is transgender as anything else in my life. And while I would never choose for anyone to have to go through that struggle that he will, and I believe he will, I couldn't be more proud of my son. He is kind, playful, enthusiastic, full of life, and a fine addition to the world we live in. And finally, just as I transition over to Kelly, I'd invite all of you to ask yourself, what realities in your life are you avoiding? What are you struggling with to make unreal that is real? I believe that we all have things about ourselves, our situations in life that we don't prefer or maybe even acknowledge. Some things that fall into this category take a lot of spiritual and emotional energy to combat or deny, or to try to make them go away. If you have a giant boulder or rock that you're trying to push up a hill, maybe it's time to acknowledge it. Step aside. Let it be what it is, and save your energy for what is beautiful and wonderful in our world. Pull that stopper out of that proverbial bathtub of pain and suffering and be free.
you're a hard act to follow. So, this portion of our talk could be called expansive gender, expansive God, expansive gender. I'm here to share what I've been learning over the past 9 years. One, I learned that gender is not fixed. 9 years ago, I could understand sexual identity, but not gender identity, at least not yet. God has taken me through a steep learning curve. 9 years ago, we were told we were having twin girls, but it wasn't true. We didn't know that yet, and here's what happened. At age 2, Gabriel then, tried to potty train as a boy, and I corrected him, like, what are you doing? And when he became more verbal, which was pretty quickly, he said he wanted to be a boy, but I mistook him for saying he wanted to be a tomboy. I'm an adventure junkie. I'm out there doing things that most people would consider a boyish activities. We're breaking out of that stereotype, but I thought maybe he meant tomboy, and he kept saying, no, I want to be a boy. So he insisted on that and not to be a girl who does boyish things. He started choosing Halloween costumes starting at age 3 that were male characters. So he wanted to be Luke Skywalker. I said, you mean Leia or Rey? And he said, no, Luke Skywalker. And he's chosen those Halloween costumes up throughout time that were male. And I began to worry, what if he were trans? I was worried because I knew it was a tough road. It's a tough road for LGBTQ plus folks, and that much of society would not be so open-minded and willing to learn like we were. He was insistent, consistent, and persistent, which are the 3 markers that they look for in a trans person. And he was insistent that he was a boy. He was consistent in saying he was a boy, and he was persistent in saying that he was a boy and wanted to be a boy. We listened openly but didn't understand. And at age 5, I met with a pediatrician because I was concerned and confused. And she told me to start using gender-neutral language. I have children. Children climb trees, and so on. The doctor was introducing me to practice an expansive mindset when it came to gender. This then was the school year that was at home due to the pandemic, as LJ referred to. So I was facilitating the online learning and classes for Audrey and Gabriel. It was an amazing year and a total game changer because I oversaw the kids day in, me through the schooling part, for over 400 days. So his teacher, Miss Milosevic, is a beautiful Latino woman. Oh my gosh, I love her. And she would call the children Mija and Mijo. I watched Gabriel, who takes initiative, ask her, can you call me Mijo? And then with the first week portrait where you draw yourself, he drew himself as a boy. And I was curious about it. I'm like, you drew yourself with short hair. You drew yourself in boy clothing. He said, yep. And then he started signing his names on his schoolwork as boy names. Still, I never knew the word transgender. He never knew the word transgender till LJ was reading a short story from the book Rebel Girls about a trans 6-year-old girl who had advocated to be able to use the appropriate bathroom for herself. At the end of the story, I'll never forget, Gabriel said, Daddy, that's me. I'm transgender. That's who I am. And to me, that was our gender reveal, and it was sealed. We didn't choose this path for him. It's a difficult path. Yes, we're liberal, but we didn't make him trans. But denying who he truly was and is as a child in the image of God would have been asking us and him to live a lie. And that felt like a mortal sin, missing the mark. So at spring break, we asked, do you want to be Gabriel? Pronouns he, him. And he beamed and said, yes, emphatically. So that's what he was. And again, he took initiative. The day after spring break, he messaged his teacher and the class saying, hi, I'm Gabriel, and my pronouns are he, him, sir. So we also learned about the genderbread person, and there's a handout. Let me see if I can work this. Oh, there it is. There's not. Okay.
Oh.
There it is. And talk about expansive God, expansive gender. We have the different parts of a person. And I'll start with attraction, which is the heart. So you might be attracted to male or female. You might be heterosexual, pansexual, where you are attracted to all kinds, asexual, bisexual, lesbian, gay. You might And then I move over to gender expression, which is in the arm. Like, that's what presents on your skin. And it's communicated to the world through clothing, speech, body language, hairstyle, voice, or the emphasis or de-emphasis of body characteristics and behavior. So you might be gender fluid, where you go in between male, female. Somewhere on the spectrum, you might be feminine, masculine, androgynous. Then you have assigned sex, which is usually the assigned at birth based on a visual assessment of external anatomy. And you have female, male. Gabriel is AFAB, a female at birth. That's what the doctors say, AFAB. And then most really importantly is gender identity, which is the brain. And you might be, and on the back, gosh, look at all these terms that one can be considered, and there's more. It doesn't include the two spirits. And there's non-binary for gender identity, genderqueer, woman, male, gender fluid, cisgender, which means you're still the gender that you were assigned at birth. I was AFAB at birth, and I'm still identify as female. So what was most important that we found out is that the head and heart always win. Head and heart always win, and his head was saying, I am a boy, and that is the truth. I learned that the body you're born with is not a fixed thing. I learned it because it can cause more harm to a person to have a body that does not align with the gender they identify as. Our son will get to decide through the guidance of doctors and psychologists how he wants his body to look. At this stage, there's nothing that needs to be permanent. We'll check his well-being and take things one day at a time. Some trans folks choose to make changes to look more like their gender identity, and some don't. Expansive God, expansive gender. I learned some people also think that being transgender is a mental illness, and it's not. And the reality is, for a trans person, denying the reality that a person is trans and their transness can cause distress, even leading to suicide. There's gender dysphoria, the condition of feeling one's emotional and psychological identity as male or female to be opposite to one's biological sex. Does remain in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, as a mental health diagnosis where professionals, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, have agreed that the only course of treatment is that of the affirmation model, meaning to guide them in transition socially and possibly medically if diagnostic criteria have been met. Bottom line, denying who God has made us to be compromises our well-being. I've also learned having a trans son has nothing to do with a liberal agenda in the first place, but it may become one. We're just being parents of a trans child, and legislation of trans kids has been devastating. Even if it weren't, I would still advocate for the visibility of gender expansiveness and LGBTQI+ issues. Like, I also advocate for the visibility of Black and brown people and equity practices that create inclusion. I'm a teacher, and I've had students with two moms, two dads, kids who may have crushes on classmates of the same sex, or wonder what gender is, because it's not a fixed thing. Kids need visibility in all ways that a person can hold identity so they can help make sense of their own. We can normalize values beyond heteronormative values. Again, God is expansive, so why not show the expansive realities in humanity? Finally, some people say they don't understand what it means to be transgender. Well, I didn't either, but I stayed curious and open-minded and listened and learned. We actually had to have a meeting with one of our school principals that we've been with because a teacher had asked inappropriate questions about Gabriel during a conference. In the meeting, I explained from knowing that I used to know nothing about being trans to being at but now I'm at step 6 out of 10 of understanding. We love questions asked out of curiosity, but not questions asked out of skepticism. On a personal and spiritual level, for a while I didn't know what it meant to be in relationship with God, and I prayed to whom it may concern. Yeah. So this identity crisis resulted in a deep dive of studying other cultures and their faiths. I created my own major called Values and Cultures, and my thesis question was, what is your truth and how did you decide? After graduating, I moved to Santa Fe, where I jokingly say I pursued a master's in spiritual thought, by doing nothing more than living there and listening to the people to share their version of spirituality. I wanted to understand a more expansive sense of God and to grow in my understanding. Having a trans child added a whole new dimension to this. I'm expanding and evolving, and so are our young folks who are going to help us reimagine gender. And I believe that is a direct path to the expansiveness of God and having a growth mindset as our iterations of God evolve. And as a reminder to myself is the quote at the front of the bulletin from the Hebrew scripture. Did I say it right, Jim? Hebrew scripture. For you created my inmost being. You knit me wonderfully in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. And I say, may we stay curious and keep growing. I have a short video clip.
From the stars in the sky to the fish in the sea. Written by Kai Cheng Tom. Illustrated by Wai-Yant Lee and Kai Yun Ching. Once upon a time, in a little blue house on a hill on the edge of town, a baby was born. They were born when both the moon and the sun were in the sky, so the baby couldn't decide what to be. Boy or girl, bird or fish, cat or rabbit, tree or star. So the baby looked a little like everything. They looked very strange. All the same, the baby's mother gave her child a bath and rocked them in her arms. Your name, she said, is Mulan, and she sang a song that her own mother had sung to her long ago.
Stars in the sky to the fish in the sea. You can crawl like a crab or with feathers fly high. And I'll always be here, I'll be here standing by. And you know that I'll love you till the day that I die.
And even though they still couldn't decide, the baby felt loved. Mulan grew up to be a strange, magical child who was always changing. They grew feathers and wings to fly with bluebirds in the mornings, scales and a tail to swim with fish in the afternoon, and fur and paws to play with puppies in the evenings. No matter how many things Mulan became, their mother always brought them back into the little blue house, gave them a bath, and tucked them into bed at the day's end. As the stars rose, she sang.
Whatever you dream of, I believe you can be. From the stars in the sky to the fish in the sea.
And Mulan felt loved. One day it was time for the child to go to school. They were so excited. They grew a tail of peacock feathers and a coat of tiger stripes.
Yeah. It's a beautiful video. You can do the whole thing.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you so much for your authenticity. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peace and rest, and know that God is everywhere.
Creator, loving God, universe that surrounds me and created me, help me to see my own blind spots. What am I trying to hide from myself? Teach me acceptance of everything that I am and have been. Teach me and show me how to accept everyone as they are.
May the blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide in me. May God's presence illuminate my heart now and forevermore. May the blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide in you. May God's presence illuminate my heart now and forevermore. The blessings of God rest upon us. May God's peace abide in us. May God's presence illuminate our hearts now and forevermore. Now and forevermore.
Wow. Kelly and LJ, us as ministers, sometimes we want to say 2 cents worth, a little additional word or something. But you've told the whole story, and thank you for touching our hearts. And we promise you that we support you, we love you, we bless you, as we do with your children. Thank you. Thank you. And so as we come to the time in our service, we come to the time of offering, and we want to thank each and every one of you for how you participate in this community and how you support this community. So let's bring the ushers forward and we'll bless our offering. So together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.
Please join along in some singing. I release all things that no longer serve me. I release all all things that no longer serve me. I release all things that no longer serve me. I love you. I love you. I love you. Oh, come home. Oh, come home. Oh, come home. Let's do that one more time. 3 more times. Oh, come home. Oh, come home. Oh, come home.
So thank you, Lise. Yes, may we all come home to our true selves. So it's time of our service. By the way, the book that Kelly mentioned, this beautiful book, From the Stars in the Sky to the Fish in the Sea, is available in our bookstore. So I believe they only have 1 copy left this week. So if you want it, come and get it. So let's all, first of all, sing our young people in.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Here on the corner of Lines and Vine, I'm gonna let it shine. Here on the corner of Lines and Vine, I'm gonna let it shine. Here on the corner of Lines and Vine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Today we talked about receptivity. Here's our masks from it. I can't hold it. Basically, here, I'll do these. You can explain that.
Receptivity means oh dang, I forgot. Receptivity means, well, it's kind of about being open.
Okay, go ahead.
So today we talked about receptivity, and then we made masks, and I made an absolute mess. And my mask, I cannot bring it here because it would drip everywhere and get everything pain. And that's why she's holding the microphone, because I would get everything.
Anyone else want to share? Anyone else? Go ahead.
My name is Mira, and I wanted to, and I was so creative. Like sometimes in fashion shows, people make those hats with flowers, so I made that little part right there. That was the first thing I made. And like then I wanted to make it like separate, so I started making separate things sort of. And so if you can't all see, I'll just like I'll move it around.
Thank you, Mira. Thank you. Okay, anyone else want to share? Want to share? No. Okay. Go ahead. This is Stacy Thompson, our youth and family director. So thank you, Stacy. Thank you. Okay. Shall we conclude this party? And just circle up and hold hands and very good, LJ. Going to have to stretch out a little bit today. Come on. A little closer. Come on. Okay, the words are on our screen. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.